Hogstye.
Good morning, Hogstye fans, and welcome to this week's episode. You know, it seems like every week now in Team Town, some kind of crazy stories are happening that have nothing to do with what the team's doing on the field, and they always want to take up all of our time when we do this show. And, of course, we're going to have two big stories about that this week, one with Ron Rivera announcing he has cancer, and the team making history hiring the first African-American team president in the NFL's history books. Steve also was able to get a hold of Darius Guice's arrest record and some information from the courts that he was able to go over, and he's going to have some highlights from that. But we do want to get to on-the-field topics, and so welcome everybody. Welcome Jamal, welcome Steve, welcome Robert. How are you guys all doing? It's another week closer to real NFL football being played.
I'm just preparing for the super hurricane.
Oh, right.
Hurricane.
Down here.
Double
hurricane.
hurricane.
It's supposed to be two hurricanes at one time.
Yep.
There is Hurricane Laura, or there's Tropical Storm Laura, which is to the east over the Dominican Republic right now. And then there is Tropical Storm Marco, which is farther to the west, kind of in the middle of the Gulf. Fortunately for me, unfortunately for Louisiana, they have sort of are now tracked towards Louisiana, and either way, I'll be on the clean side of it, so I'll be all right.
Yeah, they're both smaller. They're like ones or twos, right?
I was going to say that, so help me out. So what happens if it's like, even if they're smaller, what happens if two hurricanes hit at once? It's still just a tropical storm?
Well, I read about this. There is a small and unlikely chance that these two storms could merge and eventually form kind of one eye at a much bigger storm,
right,
that you would see in a movie or something. But that's
the
a
perfect
very small
storm
chance.
actually was exactly that, if you remember that movie.
Yeah, right. But from my perspective, the tracks for these things have both aimed towards Louisiana now. So for those of you who are uninitiated, you want to be on the west side of a hurricane, not the east side. And so either way, we'll be all right. I mean, nothing compares to Hurricane Harvey.
This is just are they Category 1s?
They're not even any category. They're still tropical storms right now.
One is supposed to pick up and become a Category 1.
Right.
See, my wife is from Florida by way of Panama.
Right.
And experienced this a lot, and she used to play outside. She said they used to play outside during Category 1 and 2. So
It's nothing.
It's literally
I had the eye of Hurricane Ike pass over my house, and then we had Hurricane Harvey was a direct hit with the most rain in U.S. history. So either way, we'll be all right.
Well, and Rob, you came from Texas, right? So I mean, you must have been through one or two. So
no.
No?
Well, you were from where were you from?
East
You were from
Texas. East.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we're like really close to Shreveport, right on that Louisiana-Texas border. So.
And really, I would think that you would have gotten hit at least a couple times.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Never.
Well, I say I live, a few, I don't know, 10 miles maybe as a crow flies from the Gulf.
Right.
So it's a bigger deal for me than
you're right
more
on
inland
you're
than
right
Rob
there.
does. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope that it kind of doesn't hit you, and I hope whoever it does hit, no one gets too badly damaged, because we've seen how those hurricanes can mess stuff up, man.
I'll tell you what, I mean, if you were keeping a scorecard, I think Louisiana, about who gets hit most, it's Florida and Louisiana.
Yeah.
And Florida, too. Florida and Louisiana get it first.
Florida gets it for different reasons. But anyway, we have a lot to go over today, so we should really cut down on the hurricane talk, and let's hop in. I want to start this week with the poll that we did online, because we forgot to do that last week, and I hate to miss it 2 days in a row.
Okay. So the poll this week, because we always have to have a poll.
Right.
The poll question was, quite a bit has happened to the Washington football team this offseason. How hopeful are you right now for the future of the franchise? The options were very hopeful, somewhat unhopeful, and very unhopeful. Now, I got to say that we posted this prior to Ron Rivera's the announcement of Ron Rivera's cancer diagnosis. And so whether or not that skewed the voting or not is for you to decide. This is not Rasmussen. We're not doing a scientific poll.
Right.
But just understand that probably skewed things somewhat. So let's start with Jamal today.
It's crazy. I was just about to ask you can you say what the question was again?
Okay. The question was, how hopeful are you right now for the future
Hopeful.
of the franchise?
That's what it was.
Hopeful,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
very unhopeful, very hopeful, somewhat unhopeful, or very unhopeful were the options.
I like to believe that there's a strong sense of optimism still out there. You did bring up a good point about the Rivera news may be skewing it, but I don't think it's going to be huge in terms of just the fan base. So I think I'm gonna say very hopeful. Uh, that's actually both. That's my answer, and that's what I think the fans answered as well. So I don't think it's skewed it too much, but what I'm saying, it's a little bit.
Okay. Very good. Rob, what do you think?
My experience with this fan base has always been a negative one, so they're probably going to have one of the negative outlooks. They always do for the most part on most things.
Yeah, on Twitter.
Yeah, but in this case, I'm gonna say they're somewhat hopeful. Me, I would probably go with very hopeful. But I'm gonna say the fans said somewhat hopeful.
Okay. Alex?
I'm going to agree with Rob. The fans are somewhat hopeful. And I base this off of every time you see the Post or somebody do a predict the season thing with this fan base, we always somehow end up with fans thinking we're going to get 10 or 11 wins, even when we're terrible.
Call that the Rick Rogers effect.
Yes.
Yes. What are you looking at? Because when I see stuff, it's always like, oh, the sky is always falling. We're dead.
I'm
suck.
talking about if
He's
you
talking
ask
about it.
fans to predict like each game of the season every year, they always come out around 10-6 or 11-5. I don't know why.
I'm gonna go down your follow list and I'm gonna hit follow on everybody you following.
But here's my thing. I am personally a abandon all hope guy because that way you don't get let down by this team. So I'm just gonna say this team is gonna not even finish the season. They're just gonna get so beaten up. So I abandon all hope. Whatever the least hopeful.
Very unhopeful is that
go
category.
under that by another one.
Okay, the results of this poll stunned me completely. The two hopeful categories, somewhat unhopeful and very unhopeful, if you add them together, were 83%.
Oh.
Together. The winner was somewhat unhopeful, so Rob got it right.
Yeah.
At 48%. Very hopeful was 35%. Somewhat unhopeful was only 9%. Very unhopeful was only 8%. That amazed me because I have my experience is what Rob said, which is I know what kind of both of you are saying because like the morons on our comment section are always predicting 10 and 11 wins and all that stuff, but the Twitter Illuminati are very just incredibly negative.
I think that it just speaks more to what Twitter is, and that is that you probably have more lurkers, people who don't tweet and just follow everybody. And they'll maybe commit on a poll, but that's about
it. I was just amazed that it was this skewed. Personally, for me, I would have. I guess I was kind of going between somewhat unhopeful and somewhat hopeful. I'm kind of in the middle because we've gotten burned a lot, but at the same time, I think Ron Rivera's cancer diagnosis aside, they have done the right thing with the front office. So I guess I would have ended up voting for somewhat hopeful. And I intentionally, by the way, did not distinguish between the near-term future and the long-term future, just because this is just a dumb Twitter poll.
I get it.
Yeah, I assumed he was talking just like near future, like within 1 to 3 years, I guess. That's what I assumed.
I was kind of talking like whatever you mean that to be is what I meant.
On interpretation.
I mean, I feel like 3 years is long-term future in the NFL. I mean, guys don't. That's a career for some guys.
Just to show you the difference between the comments here. So we got a lot of comments. I can't read them all, but we got at Dr. Jekyll says, for the future of the franchise beyond this season, this may have been the best offseason in the past 30 years, certainly in the past decade. Mm-hmm. On the other end of that spectrum, rest in peace, 3-time champion Redskins says, definitely at the low. Well, it's his handle. Yeah. It's his use. It's not the ad. It's what he calls himself, whatever that
Right.
is called.
That was very long. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. His comment was definitely at the lowest point since the Zorn era, maybe lower. So we've got one person saying it's the best point in the last 30 years. The other one says it's the worst time since Zorn. And that's kind of the tone and tenure of this stuff. There's not a lot of in between in these comments.
That's very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you have such a wide range of people in the comment section, but the poll itself was
Here's a fair
obvious.
comment. Let me go over one more here. Gabrielle Wood, who is at GCH Wood, he's a frequent commenter. He says, I like what I've seen so far this offseason, but one offseason doesn't repair 20-plus years of ineptitude from management. That's a good point.
That is a fair point. It's going to take time. Well, guys, let's move on into what's been going on with the team. We had some roster moves, so let's get through those quick. Thaddeus Moss, the tight end that everyone was kind of quietly excited about, mostly because of his, parentage. He has now been waived due to injury.
He's on IR now.
He's on IR now. Okay, yeah. So he was waived initially, now he's on IR. Did they ever announce what the injury was, or is it just like a mystery?
No, they did. Ron Rivera talked about it in his comments from Saturday and said that Moss had foot surgery, and that was why
so
he was not recovering from the foot surgery fast enough, and so they basically redshirted him.
Gotcha. So the foot surgery he probably had in February or whatever, not back yet.
They didn't say a time period, but it wasn't like yesterday.
No. I remember seeing he had a foot surgery February. So
yeah.
So he's done. Means we're super thin at tight end.
You don't think so?
Thin. We was already thin.
Yeah.
Like, even with him, But go ahead. I ain't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, no. I think you're right. We were already thin. This makes us thinner. We're like that Stephen King book at this point, That is a reference that maybe anybody under 20 would not get.
I didn't get it, Alex. And
I was saying, to be honest with you,
what? You never heard of Thinner?
You don't remember that Stephen King book and movie
I've never read a single Stephen King book in my entire life.
It's a silly plot. Like, a guy gets a gypsy curse where he just keeps losing weight and becomes like a skeleton.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Stephen King books never turned me on.
Well, they're not.
Sounds like a bad diet plan. Is what it sounds like.
Yeah. So anyway, the team also signed 2 offensive linemen, David Simmons. I'm not really sure how you pronounce Simmons, and he's a 25-year-old offensive tackle out of Purdue. He was on the Texans practice squad. I think he's here because Sadiq Charles is hurt. There was a picture posted this morning or yesterday of Charles in cast on his leg, so I guess he's injured for a while, so you needed a new body. And the Redskins also signed Joshua Garnett, who was a first-round guard. Interesting move there.
Didn't work out for the 49ers?
Yeah,
49ers.
Dude just kept getting hurt. I mean, I was doing my little bit of research, and knee injury in his second year, and then a dislocated toe and broken thumb in 2018. And, so basically 2 years of not playing, and then he was done. He was with Detroit in the practice squad, but, you're talking about a first-round talent who just, injuries kind of derailed him. I kind of wonder if there's any upside left.
What year did you say he was a first-round pick again?
2016.
2016.
Yeah, he's on 26.
Yeah, it's like that one guard that we had initially signed from Indianapolis who hadn't played with them for X amount of years, who haven't played in the league for X amount of years. I can't remember his name. But,
Is it Austin Howard?
It may have been. I don't know. I'd have to look it up at this point, to be honest with you. But I want to say we signed him this offseason, if not last offseason. But it's just the fact that it didn't really amount to anything. I actually think he may have gotten cut. I'm going to look it up.
That was Pamphile. Kevin.
Yeah, you talk about Pamphile.
Yeah. He got cut. By the way, the team has not announced those signings, by the way, just FYI.
Yeah, well, it's been put out on
reported.
Twitter.
Yeah,
it's been reported.
They did make one move that I liked, but
What
I'm
was
just
that?
now catching up on it. Linebacker Donald Payne.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
very explosive. He's just really raw.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like when you say, so when I hear explosive, I always think of like more of a pass rusher. What do you look for an explosive?
No.
Yeah.
When I say explosive from this end, I mean uh, like just good good footwork and get off.
Mm-hmm.
Like you take your read steps and you're gone. You make your decision. Like you're gone. Like you're ready.
Okay, so
So
it's more his quick read
reaction
ability
time,
almost,
yeah,
right?
read and reaction time.
Mm.
He's definitely a fast twitch, Khalil Hudson type guy. But
Because I have him at 5'11", 217, which tells me that
he's
I
going to
wonder
be
if,
weak side.
yeah.
Yeah, that feels very short for
Yeah,
an NFL.
he's a Khalil Hudson type,
Mm.
but definitely quick twitch, like fast. From from what I've seen, the little bit that I've seen,
Mm.
he's really raw and rough around the edges.
Mm.
So,
Perfect guy to develop for a year or two and see if he can
Exactly.
become a player.
Yep.
so what was his? Well, two things actually. The guy I was thinking of was last year. It was Hugh Thornton.
Oh, Hugh Thornton.
Yeah,
Wow,
Hugh
that's
Thornton.
that's
Deep
a
cut.
call out of the
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the guy who they signed, who hadn't played for some time due to injuries mainly. But he's not doing anything right now with the team. I don't even think he's on the team anymore. But my question was for Rob. Like, what was his production level like? Because I never heard of him. But when Steve said the 5'11", 217, it made me wonder how he may fare at linebacker.
Well, he was with Jacksonville. He was drafted by Jacksonville originally. Um, he's I remember his pro day. He ran a pretty fast time. I think he was like a 4.5 guy,
Mm.
if I'm not mistaken. But he played at Stetson. He was signed by Baltimore as an undrafted free agent, and then Jacksonville was his last stop. Uh,
So,
he played for Jacksonville last year,
Okay.
so
so
more of a special teams.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's only 26, but I'm trying to find his 40 time because I do
I
remember
got
that
it. It's
about him.
according to the Daytona Beach News Journal. He ran a 4.51 and a 4.56.
Those are
Yeah,
pretty good
so
for
he's freaking moving.
yeah.
But again, I think he's gonna be really a special teams demon, and then one of those guys that could potentially be something. At 26, though, you pretty much know what you got.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I would give him another year just to see. But at that age, you pretty much know what you got.
It seems like this team is loading up a little bit on guys with that kind of size and build. The smaller tweener types between linebacker and strong safety. It feels like that's I mean, I hate to use. Well, let's call it the Viper position because we drafted that one guy who, and that's kind of what they
House
did.
Hudson from
Yeah.
Michigan.
Yeah. So, I feel like this team is kind of loading up on those guys, which is interesting to me. I wonder if that's going to be a big featured part of this defense.
Well, one thing about it definitely helps your special teams play
Sure.
because it creates mismatches from that aspect.
Mhm.
You got speedy linebackers going against tight ends and fullbacks from the other teams,
Guys who
opposing
can be the
kicking
edges
teams.
on the punt team,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it helps you from that aspect, and then you're fast. You're that much faster in your sub packages, your nickel, your dime.
Right.
Whether they're rushing off the edge, if they have the ability, um, or if they're just covering tight ends or running backs, it's a better matchup. It's more in your favor from a speed perspective. And
Mm.
if you look at it, the league is headed that way anyway. It's already there pretty much. I think it started a while back. I think it was a year after I came out. We had a guy from TCU, Daryl Washington. He played for
That's my guy.
Arizona. Yeah,
That's
he
my
was
guy right
6'2",
there.
220, and was like we had him playing safety at TCU. So I
Mhm.
think that's the era. And then you see the Buchanan when he was with Arizona. You see certain guys who are fast in that body type,
Right.
uh, making that transition or making the transition to the league and those sub packages and just being defensive coordinators being creative with those type of players.
Well, I mean, and I might be misremembering this. Wasn't even Brian Urlacher a safety in college who then bulked
Yes.
up?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
like it's something that you can do it, and it easily works. And that goes back to somebody Ron coached.
Well, look, the other end of the spectrum of this is that Landon Collins fits his profile to a
Sure,
T.
sure.
You know, I've often wondered if Landon Collins would be better as kind of a dime linebacker than a safety, to be honest, because that was more of the way the Giants used him anyway. It wasn't the way he was used last year with the Redskins at all.
No.
But the Giants kind of used him as sort of a dime linebacker almost a lot of times. So he's kind of a guy that I think would fit that role, except he needs to be on the field every play because he makes $84 million. But
right.
Yeah.
I mean, you know me, I love old school football, so if teams are going to try and bring back the 4-6 defense, like, I'm all for that. So if all these guys are really just going to be weird tweeners in a 4-6, I like that.
You got to have corners that can cover.
We're going to get burned.
We got
I know.
Fabian Moreau and Danny Johnson.
You could only run it against, like, Seattle, who still runs the ball 50% of the time. It would be a useless defense for 31 other teams.
It would get demolished if we ran that on the Redskins. They would not. It would not do well.
No, it would not. So, guys, training camp's been going on for 2 weeks now. Obviously, it's been different because access has been limited this year. But we are seeing some video come out. We are seeing some reports coming out. The big thing I'm hearing and reading is it sounds like the offense is really not clicking yet. How panicked are you guys about that at this point? And the other thing is Ron Rivera seems to just be ripping everybody a new one, at the end of every practice.
This is expected to me.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jamal. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine because I start off with anyway. So, but no, I just feel like it is kind of expected. But I think one of the things that is kind of baffling to some is that they're surprised at. Well, all right. So two things. Because we understand that the offense is going to struggle, but when you get the reports that the quarterbacks aren't playing good, and this isn't just Haskins because they mention Kyle, they specifically focus on Haskins, but they mention Kyle Allen and Alex Smith having bad plays as well. But when the quarterbacks aren't having success, which are the primary focus from the reporters, because obviously we have a young quarterback in here, it's going to be talked about. You kind of get nervous. You knew the offensive line was going to be bad. You knew that you were going to have. You knew you were going to have the Adrian Peterson, who was the most consistent, besides Terry McLaurin, one of the most consistent players on the offense and experienced players on the offense. Then you go to the quarterback where the question mark lies. And when you don't hear the best news, there are going to be panics out there. And I feel like that's where the hysteria is coming from, because when all you hear is, they had played this good and then they had to play this bad, or the offense collectively did not play good, then that's when the questions start coming in, like, okay, I'm starting to get a little nervous about this team. I'm starting to get a little nervous about this offense and this quarterback. And that's where I think that the general consensus lies in terms of their fear for this upcoming season is the offense and the quarterback. So that's where I think it's really coming from.
I'd like to hear Rob's input on this, because my impression is, and my experience from what the level I played at, which is nowhere near this, is that the offense is. I don't want people to think that I'm some kind of I didn't start at Alabama, But anyway, my experience and my impression is that when you're implementing a new offense, it's much harder than implementing a new defense to kind of get it installed, get it running in a precise manner than it is defenses. So I think what we've seen in a lot of training camps is the defense is a lot of times ahead of the offense. And then here you throw into the fact that the offensive line is close to turmoil, it seems like, at this point. It doesn't surprise me at all about what we're seeing. So it's a shame there's no preseason games so we could see it, get a better sense of it. But that's my impression. I just think it needs time.
I would agree with what you just said with both of y'all to a sense, but also I would throw in another aspect of this is that again, there aren't preseason games, but if there were, then most of the times your offense doesn't click until week 3 of the regular season. you throw in the fact that, like Steve said, you're learning a new offense. So there's a whole new different verbiage, everything, and learning the new defense is very simple. Um, for instance, when Hazlitt and them came in and changed to a 3-4, is tight G, what was it? Tight Sam me 33. Like that's literally a verbiage for a play. Tight Sam me 33. Like 3 words, whatever, and they were simple calls. But when you throw in all the offensive verbiage, telling each player what to do, that's going to be a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, with preseason games, it took offenses until week 3 to hit their groove. Now I think we're looking at a situation where they might not look decent until week 6 or 7 of this regular season. And when I hear reports like this too, I also, because I'm a former defensive player, think that, well, shit, our defense is pretty good right now. Like, they in mid-season form right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just, are they playing well? They playing better than the offense. That's all I hear. So when the offensive coaches complain, I don't really take, or when people complain about the offense, I don't really take it to heart.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the one thing that makes this all trickier is you're only seeing your defense versus your offense. So is it that we think we have a great defensive line and defensive front. Is it that, or is the offense really just this bad, or is it the reverse? Is the offensive line so bad that this defensive front suddenly looks elite all the time? There's all that kind of stuff that you got to factor in. It's the hard part about not having a preseason. You don't get a sense of, well, they're hitting other people now. So, that's always a bit of a mystery.
Listen, the defensive line, I think, is more accurately described as having a lot of talent. Because don't forget, this defense was almost the worst team in the league against the run last year.
Sure.
And this is the same guys minus Chase Young and a couple of non-starters. I think they have a lot to prove, and if they have the idea that they are elite, that doesn't bode well for them, quite honestly, because you could argue that they underperformed, considering that the talent that they had on the field last year and the contracts these people had and the draft status of these people, to be the worst running team in the league, just about. I think there were 31, maybe.
Yeah, they haven't been good against the run since Rob left,
and they weren't great against the pass, and they gave up a lot of points too.
Yeah.
So if these guys think that they're elite, I have a problem with it, because you weren't elite.
No.
And you added Chase Young, and I'm glad he's here, but one guy does not turn an entire defense around in 2 weeks in the preseason.
Well, no preseason in this case.
Yeah, well, training camp.
Training camp.
Training camp.
Yeah.
I'm like I said, I'm not surprised that they're ahead, but I don't think it proves anything. I think nothing. Zero has been proved. And the other, again, the fact that the offensive line is just it's such awful shape that they're bringing in people that we've never heard of.
A practice squad guy and a guy who's been injured for 5 years.
And they still don't have a starting right guard, that I can tell.
You mean left guard?
It's bad news.
Left guard.
I was going to say, another thing that you guys actually harped on it, but I don't think it's like to this specific level or degree, but like the training camp thing is like when you hear things from the reporters, like, or even when you see things in training camp, if you're there at the practices, it's never always going to be 100% translating to the regular season. And the same thing in preseason. Like, these things never always 100% translate to the regular season. So, like, these periods are for coaches to determine what they got. But at the same time, like, you can see the individual players, like, who are actually being undervalued or overrated and things like that. But at the same time, for example, if the defense, like, we may overvalue it, but we don't, as a collective group, we may overvalue, but we don't know where it's coming from. We don't know what part we're overvaluing. Like, we may say the defensive line is the best unit, and that may be true, but we may be overlooking, like, for example, overlooking the safeties or the cornerbacks or something like that. I don't know. it's just an example out there. And then the same thing for the offense. When you see something that's poor, or you hear a bunch of poor reports on the offense, like, we don't know what they're really working on. We don't know what's going on until the regular season starts. And it's just things that we overlook because it's preseason and training camp, or we may underlook because it's preseason and training camp. And that's a big problem because we just don't know what's going to happen when the regular season starts.
Well, so there's the one thing I will say that we're able to see is they are showing, a lot of highlights online of, guys practicing. I don't think you're ever going to see, like, full 11 on 11s. I think that's the stuff they block. But the one thing I've picked up on watching what they are showing is you're seeing a ton of plays to the running back in the passing game in what they're practicing, which I find interesting. And we talked about that last week with Bullock, that you're going to need to get the running backs involved more without a great tight end. You need to find some interior guys who can contribute in the passing game.
This is an offensive staff that just came from Christian McCaffrey and is trying their hardest, they're trying their damnedest to recreate.
Yeah, it's
Christian
absolutely
McCaffrey.
part of Ron's kind of core play design too. Is using running backs in the pass game, and you could also say that about Turner. His dad, I think, was always big about using the running game and passing game out of the backfield. So, I thought that was interesting. And the other thing that they're talking about is doing a team scrimmage at FedEx Field.
We gotta find a way to get in there.
Yeah, find a way to get in there, I guess, and get some practice in the stadium.
If anybody out there can help us break into a stadium, if you have criminal skills, please let us know.
I was just talking about emailing Sean.
Why don't we do that? Yeah, let's try that.
I was about to say that's the safest route.
Yeah. But I thought that was interesting. I really wish they had like a practice team that they could scrimmage against, though. Just so it's not just Redskins players, Washington NFL players versus Washington NFL players.
It's not going to happen.
I know.
Look, this is the whole problem. That's a nice thought, and I agree with you. You got to be great, and maybe go out and line up the UVA football team or something.
Right.
Who knows? But that's not going to happen. We're not going to really know anything until the regular season starts. The offense is going to be slow at the beginning of the year. They are.
Yeah, based off of what Rob said, it's going to be like a half season of terrible offense.
Right. Yeah,
so we know what we got.
I'm not too worried about the quarterbacks, because we've seen a few errant passes here and there, who cares? We're not really seeing the whole picture. I'm more worried about the stability up front than I am of the quarterbacks, because especially when you have a young quarterback as a starter, if he's getting beat to hell every play, that doesn't do wonders for his development,
Well, he could be getting the Andrew Luck effect this year if he starts, because you remember for Andrew Luck's first 3 years, they failed to protect him, and it caused him a short career. So,
we saw
not addressing that offensive line is going to be a big problem for them.
We saw that decades ago here with Spurrier not protecting Patrick Ramsey, and Ramsey got shell-shocked. You saw it with David Carr in Houston years ago.
Spurrier did it intentionally, though.
That's the biggest example right there.
Oh, yeah. Well, David Carr's the all-time example of don't protect the quarterback. he still holds the record for most sacks.
I kind of think. Well, I said I kind of think. I strongly feel like it damaged his psyche moving forward. Like once he got. I don't even think he ever got the protection or decent protection. But it's just incredible, like the amount of sacks that he got on
76.
And what will be his average a year? Like I know we can't do it right on the spot, but just to understand like his average sack per season while he was in Houston.
That's about 4.8 sacks per game.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
You know what? I would have to turn into Michael Vick at that point.
Except he was David Carr, not Michael
David
Vick.
Carr had the opposite
his
legs
entire
of Michael
season,
Vick.
Routine.
That's what I'm saying.
There's a reason why he looked like he had PTSD after his rookie season.
But let's hope that doesn't hapen. But the potential's there, because what do we have on the offensive line? We've got a gigantic question mark at left tackle. Sadiq Charles has a lower leg injury of some type, apparently. And he's missed all of this week. He's in some kind of leg brace thing. So
He
the odds
also had
of
a
him
bandage
starting,
on his arm. It looks like he must have taken a fall or something.
who knows?
Yeah.
So point is,
going
it
up
doesn't.
against Chase Young to do that to you.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, the point is, he doesn't look like he's going to be a week 1 starter. So you're down to John Christian or Cornelius Lucas at starter.
Mhm.
Left guard is a huge open question mark. I said right guard earlier. I meant left guard. I guess Wes Martin, but who knows? The center is stable. That's good. Chase Ruya, yeah, Brandon Scherf, and then you have another question mark at right tackle. So, I mean, it just that's the biggest problem on the offense by far.
Yeah,
to me.
I mean,
Do you all? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you're really looking at an offensive line that's going to need to be overhauled next year, completely. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you all believe in? I just gave this little rambling about the reports and stuff like that. But do you all have any faith that, I just put it this way, any faith that Jerron Christian has improved to some degree? Or is this something where you need to wait it out a little bit?
Need to wait it out.
Ain't no way down nothing. He's not going. No, he's terrible.
yeah. I would need to see it on the field to believe it.
I don't believe him.
Yeah.
He's given me no indication that I should be hopeful.
Right.
He
Put it
can
that
be
way.
bull
Hey,
rushed. He can be speed rushed. He's turnstile Christensen.
Right. And Moses, the only thing I saw about him that I thought was interesting was somebody pointed this out. He was doing some run blocking from a 4-point stance at one point.
Right.
Which, we've always been told that he was always telegraphing if it was going to be a run or pass pretty badly. So maybe they're just committing, just do a different stance. See if it works.
Rob, what's the difference? I mean, obviously we know what the difference is because 2 hands are on the ground, but what effect does that have on an offensive lineman's ability to run block and pass block as compared to the 3-point stance?
They're never in the, well, most of them aren't in a 3-point stance. Even your guards and your tackles even your guards will sit back in a 2-point stance in passing situations too. They'll sit back in the 2-point stance, but if it's a pass and he's in that position, it's so much harder to pick your hand up off the ground.
Sure.
If you're going against a guy who's standing up. That split second where you're coming up, he's already coming forward. So your reaction time, everything just needs to be that much better if you're going to do that. On running plays, it definitely helps if you got double teams. It helps you get that double team quicker,
Sure.
depending on what hand. If you notice, sometimes, let's say Sheriff, he's on the right side. Sometimes he'll put his right hand down. Sometimes he put his left hand down. All those things are indicators on who and where they're blocking too. If he has a guy inside of him that he's got a double team, he's going to put his right hand down to keep his left hand, ready. And it's just vice versa. It's just, I'm not the O-line expert. I just know a little bit, but it puts you at a major disadvantage if you're going against a guy who's standing up and you're in that position.
Well,
And Morgan Moses is not exactly lightning quick reaction time as it is.
Yeah,
And so that
and
doesn't
as
bode
a
well.
tackle, that doesn't even make sense to me. Like, was he a Rackpo? Like, I don't understand
Yeah.
why he's been in that position.
I assume it's something they must practice just for like goal line situations where you just know it's going to be a run.
I mean, even in field goal, like
Sure.
their hands aren't down really. Like,
No, not on the outside. They're usually in a tube, standing up. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting thing that I thought I'd point out on the, show.
And we don't know. I mean, I saw that too. We don't know if that's something they just did for one play for whatever reason, or who knows.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to bode well for him, though. So I
No,
guess it's
well,
like-
I mean, he's had his struggles, and like
heard
I
he
said,
lost weight though,
Yeah, which is
which
good.
can only be good. Yeah.
Hope those knees of his that are always hurt. That's like the most old man thing. My knees are hurting. I got to lose weight.
well,
Yeah,
that's
I
normal. Normally, after you suffer a knee injury, that's the number one thing they tell you
Yeah.
before you go into rehab and stuff.
Right. Yeah, you gotta. I mean, but he's still 300 plus pounds. Those knees are still going to be a problem, I'm sure. Guys, we should move on because we do have some other topics we want to get to. Does anyone else have anything they've seen in training camp they want to put out there though before we do? No.
Nope.
No. Okay. Steve, you got some inside info that we want to put out there, and it's not inside as in the Redskins, but you were able to get the documents from the court about Darius Guice and his legal issues. So why don't you give us some highlights from there that you picked up on?
Yeah, the state of Virginia made me pay the amount that I could have spent on a nice dinner to get these, so I wanted to make use of them and go over these.
Yeah, go ahead.
Briefly. So what I got here, what we're going to go over here, are the arrest warrants for all of the charges against him, pending charges. So briefly, and I'm going to kind of edit this on the fly to leave out some
There's some critical information that we should not put out there.
The first incident of this happened on February 14th, 2020. This was misdemeanor assault and battery. And what it says here is that the victim's boyfriend, Darius Guice, pushed her to the ground in his bathroom bedroom, causing an injury to her left thumbnail where she caught her fall. The nail eventually fell off due to a popped blood vessel. And then there are photographs of this, apparently, which I do not have. That was the first incident. That was a misdemeanor assault and battery. The second incident, which is what resulted in a felony charge, was March 13th, 2020. And again, the victim reports that Guice strangled her until she was unconscious by putting his hands around her neck and applying pressure. When the victim regained consciousness, Guice was crying and tapping her. Victim stated that Guice also pushed her and pulled her hair more than once. When the victim regained consciousness, she had to catch a flight at BWI. She said she was in a hurry and did not look in a mirror until she got to her layover in Chicago. There are also photographs of this. Suffered bruising to her neck as a result of this. That was the felony incident. And then the last one was on April 17th, the latest incident. Victim reported that Guice pushed her to the ground outside the residence, causing her to sustain injuries to her body, which she photographed. And then she alleges that he also threw her cell phone into the street, which caused it to shatter. So that was the factual basis behind all the charges against Guice. So,
interesting.
Yeah, ugly.
Yeah, ugly. I mean, it's interesting, and I'm not defending it at all, but worth noting that it seemed like what people were saying was it was 3 incidents where he strangled her, and it's really only 1. But it's 3.
One.
It's 3 assault.
Well, the strangulation was what was the felony.
Yeah,
strangulation is the
I understand
charge.
that, but just to clarify from what kind of seemed like it was being reported that he had been doing that multiple times. It sounds like that was once, and then there's 2 other cases of just abuse.
Steve, you aware of what the max charges are again for strangulation?
You know what? I didn't bring it with me, to be honest with you. I have that, but I didn't, so I can't remember what it is.
Well,
but the felony is the one, and the felony is multiple years.
Unless he pleads out or something.
If convicted, the max sentence could be, if the max sentence is applied to the case, certainly many years in prison.
Right.
But I don't have it right in front of me. So
and it's different by each state, like you said.
I looked it up and I have it. I just blew it and didn't bring it with me.
Yeah, I mean, it's just horrible to hear about that stuff, and I don't know what you can say other than that.
I mean, good luck to her. The other thing is, based on this, is I don't think the victim here is who the press was reporting it is. So I'll just say that much.
Okay.
Oh, they got people mixed up or something?
I think so, because the name, I don't even want to say the name of who the press said it was, but what I'm telling you is that the initials that are listed in this warrant do not match the initials of the woman that the press reported.
Okay, so I'm not tripping. Because when I read that, I was confused. I was like, hold on, this don't even look familiar, but I didn't think nothing of it.
Yeah, so I don't want to do that to the victim and even say what the initials are or anything like that. But I'm not sure that those who reported a name have the right name. I'll say it like that.
Well, I mean, and the police wouldn't use fake initials or anything. They just use initials for an anonymity.
In my experience, no. I mean, I'm not licensed in Virginia, so maybe they do something different in Virginia. But my experience,
no, it's not. It's not. They don't use any initials. All the ones that the PPOs and EPOs, everything that I've seen come across my desk. They don't use initials. It's full first and last name, and then they only use initials if there's said kid involved.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Even in DV cases, Rob.
Yes.
Yeah. We should actually mention. I don't think Rob's ever put it out here that he has some experience in this realm now. Yeah, but anyway, I kind of like you said, Steve. I just hope for her sake that she's out of this situation for good, and the justice system can do what it needs to do to Guice.
Yeah,
'Cause,
absolutely.
yeah,
It's bad.
it's bad. That's there's no excuse for what he did. All right, guys, let's move on back to normal team stuff. We touched on this a couple times. Ron Rivera revealed that he has had cancer. It's sarcomas cell cancer, which it's a type of skin cancer, basically. Second most common kind of skin cancer that Ron has.
It's the middle one.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a very serious skin cancer that kills people, which is melanoma.
Right.
And then one he has, which is sarcoma, I believe.
Sarcoma.
Right?
That's right. Thank you.
That's the middle one. That's more dangerous than just your typical spot on your face.
Right. Which is I've had that, and that's nothing.
Yeah, but that's not what he has. He has the middle one, which is more serious, but not the one that a lot of people die of.
Right. And
I'm no doctor, but that's my understanding.
Yeah. Even the more serious melanomas, as long as you catch it early, you got a very good chance with skin cancers these days.
Yeah, the bigger problem is that the diagnosis indicated lymph node.
Right.
That's the serious part.
Right. So that's surgery or radiation therapy or something.
I don't know. I mean, I'm no doctor. I don't know, but
yeah.
That's what stuck out to me was lymph node.
Yeah, and obviously, it sounds like they caught this a while ago, and so my guess would be that and again, there's just a guess that he's already had surgery on it. Because if you catch something like that, usually a doctor will say, "All right, we're going to do the surgery ASAP," even if it's not like a serious version of.
I mean, it's certainly we all wish him well and all that. But in terms of effect on the team, I'm curious what you guys think about it, because the problem, as I see it, is that this isn't just a head coach. This is a guy who's taking over the franchise, the entire football operations. And what I'm wondering is the effect of him possibly being absent, certainly being diminished in his ability to dedicate time and energy to the team, because he has such a prevalent role in all things football. I'm wondering, even though they have Jack Del Rio sitting there, I'm wondering what the effect on the franchise as a whole is going to be if he has to miss significant time.
Not concerned.
Really?
No. He has enough guys in that building of new hires who will execute. Exactly.
Hey, knock it off. Knock it off, dog.
Jamal's dog does not agree with you, apparently.
He got enough people in that organization that can carry out the things that know Ron and will carry out things that and carry practices the way he wants them to. And then, like you said, JDR has an extensive head coaching history, so he knows what to put into the day-to-day. I like JDR a lot, honestly. I thought his time with the Raiders really showed his character and who he was. And then, obviously, being in Jacksonville, being the defensive coordinator down there. So he's used to personalities, dealing with a Jalen Ramsey. So what I'm saying is, what I'm basically getting at is that he has the experience to keep this thing moving while Ron focuses on his health and continues to get better.
Yeah, I mean, Del Rio, for everyone's consternation about his Twitter persona these days, he is an accomplished coach. Like you said, I think his, what do you want to call it? His record, he's got an over 500 coaching record over, 5-6 years that he was a head coach?
More than that. No, he's more than that. He's got more head coaching experience than Ron does.
Yeah, okay. So, I'm not worried about that side, like you said. I'm actually not even worried about this cancer. The cancer itself, like I said, it sounds like they caught it early. It's a very treatable kind of cancer. I mean, I at least WebMD'd it. So, I'm not too worried that he's going to miss a ton of time. He may, if he has to get radiation therapy, then he might miss some time. Because, that'll take it out of you. Anyone who's known anyone who's had radiation therapy, that knocks you out for a while.
Yeah, I do. Excuse me. I do feel like it's to some degree. I don't know to what extent. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I feel like this progress thing may be put on pause. I don't know. Like so when I say I have experience, I don't have too much experience because I haven't been around for radiation part, but I did have a family member who had cancer. And like when he was diagnosed, I know he had surgery, and that's all he needed because they caught it early.
Right.
And so I don't know the other aspect in terms of the radiation, things like that. And when I say that, I only say that to say I don't know exactly what Rivera needs. Like if they said they caught it early, I don't know exactly what he needs. And if he doesn't need the radiation part, then maybe he just needs time off after surgery. I don't know the extent of anything that he has because my dad had prostate cancer. He didn't have the stuff that Ron had. So I don't know anything on his end. But I only said to say to some degree I feel like it's going to be put on pause, the rebuilding process and things like that, because you need Ron to do this. Like Jack Del Rio is, he is who he is, and it's good to have some experience in terms of on the roster. You have a coach who knows what he's doing, but it's only to what degree can he hold on. Like Bruce Arians was a godsend for the Colts because he was already a quarterback whisperer and he was dealing with a rookie quarterback. Like that's one thing. Like he was in good shape over there. I just don't know to what degree it'll work out over here if you have to be put on pause. Even if it's for a couple of weeks, I just don't know. I just don't know the extent, but I feel like it is going to be put on pause to some degree.
Yeah, listen, I think weirdly enough, I tend to think that because this is happening right as we're going into the regular season and not in the off season, it's almost less of an impact for the reason Rob stated. Jack Del Rio can coach the team. What I think is maybe more important is the de facto general manager being there and fully
Right.
with it during the off season. Actually, in terms of Del Rio, I mean, Del Rio tweeted some stuff. He's got a political viewpoint that the majority of the Twitter Illuminati do not appreciate, and that's what Alex is talking about. And who cares? I mean, a bunch of people tweet all sorts of things. I think it's totally irrelevant in that respect.
I'm lost. What happened?
Jack Del Rio's tweeted some politically conservative stuff that Twitter didn't like. And so he gets criticized by some people for it, and I really couldn't care less. People tweet all sorts of stuff.
Right.
To be clear, it's not the conservative stuff; it's the conspiracy theory stuff that he's
either way.
into.
I mean, there's people tweet all sorts of stuff, and I think the players shouldn't care whatsoever about it. But anyway, so I think Del Rio can do the in-season head coaching stuff as well as Ron can. So I actually think if this is going to happen, I would tend to think this might even be the best time of the year, the least harmful time of the year for it to happen is now.
I think that's an interesting take. That this might be a better.
I mean, it's not good ever, but I'm just saying if you had to have it happen, the fact that you have a guy like Jack Del Rio who can run practice, he's a head coach for 8 or 9 years.
It's not happening when you're trying to build the roster. It's happening when you're
right.
Yeah, I get it. Well, hopefully for him, it's nothing major. And
our best wishes to Ron.
Of course. Cancer sucks. No one likes cancer. So, I hope he recovers quickly. Let's move on to the last bit of news, and this is great news for the team. We have hired a team president for the Washington football team, and it's Jason Wright, who is a former NFL running back from Northwestern. Never really been a front office guy, which is, departure for, Dan Snyder, because he usually is very establishment when it comes to this stuff. But he seems like a real breath of fresh air in the interviews we've seen. He's a Northwestern grad, has a master's degree in business from the Chicago School of Business, so very good academic school, at least there. He's been part of a major consulting firm for the last few years. He's like a turnaround specialist, it sounds like, when it comes to businesses. And just his personality when you see him interviewed and everything, he's the opposite of Vinny Serrato and Bruce Allen, who we've dealt with the last 20 years. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on him. I mean, obviously, you're always optimistic when a new guy comes in, and then you never know what happens after 10 years. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I mean, obviously, he's also, she said at the top of the show, the first African-American to be named a team president, which is a trend-setting thing, which is not something you normally hear from the Redskins.
And the youngest team president in the league. We should
Yeah,
say
he's
that.
only like 38 years old. He has an infectious type of personality. I mean, it's not going to understand what his role is. His role is not football.
No.
His role is
Yeah.
the business side, so it's not going to have much of an impact in that regard. But what it will help with
His
is
stadium.
the stadium,
Yep.
and it will help the Washington's reputation in the league is disastrous because the people who have run it for the past 20 years have been morons and egotistical buffoons in Vinny Serrato and Bruce Allen.
Right.
And this guy is the opposite of that. And so I think it can only help in that regard to add a little bit of sense of respect and stability to an organization. So the idea here is Wright runs business, Rivera runs football, which is an arrangement that most teams have, just Washington did not have. So while I'm excited about the fact that they set a trend in appointing an African American, the more important thing, the skin color is just a skin color. The more important thing is the dude.
He was qualified.
Right.
Oh,
that's the important thing.
He's eminently qualified for what you're hiring him to
And
do.
I'm glad that he's not an NFL guy. You know, I
Fresh
mean,
set
it's
of
better.
Yeah. And you know, even though he's not involved in that side of things, I kind of like that he's an ex-player. You know,
Yes.
maybe that's just my weird thing that I think you need more ex-players in the business side. And that goes not just for teams, but for like the NFL's headquarters. You know, I think the league's been hurt for a few years by not having enough guys like that. Instead of you have Roger Goodell, who's business first and not, you know, game focused first.
I think Dan was trying to do the right thing and be on the forefront of a movement instead of being behind one. Two, I think that it sends a message to all your players and former players. Three, I think he wants a new stadium, of course. And look, he's basically saying, look, people in charge of helping me get this stadium, not only did I change the name, I went above and beyond and I hired a brother. Or somebody that didn't look like me. I got away from the old guard, and you're going to be negotiating with them now. So I think there's some kind of power move there, just from that standpoint too. Not that his heart ain't in the right place. I do believe it is, but
yeah. On that note, the stadium. Let's not underestimate. This guy's been a part of a major consultant firm in the D.C. area for the last couple of years.
In other words, he's lobbied a lot of people.
He's lobbied a lot of people, and it's one of those firms that, like, they put people out in, you know, as government workers, you know, people who... it's a very good place to make contacts. Not just the lobbying side, but people who were in-house and then leave there, and they go to, like, Google and places like that, and they also become... they work for politicians.
Listen,
so
the guy is smooth.
Yeah.
He's a great talker. He presents well. He's going to be able to make the argument.
He's got the $1 million smile down, which is always nice.
He does.
Yeah. This guy's an ace. And it'll help with the stadium. I think you're absolutely right. And, you know, we talk about how the team used to... they didn't separate the business side from the football side enough. And I found it very interesting. I've seen Wright asked about that a few times. Not what the team did, but he was making jokes about, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to have a draft board. Like, that's never going to happen with him. This guy has no interest in building a team, it sounds like, which is great. And because when Bruce came in here, he kind of said he had no interest in building a team. And then we all know what happened.
He always said he had an interest in it.
Well, no. It was always, oh, no, Shanahan's going to do this. And then, you know,
but, I mean, didn't we all see through that immediately?
Yeah.
But there's such a strong personality and ability, given to Ron Rivera. Like, that's very clear and very evident that he has power on the football side. And Dan has done the same thing to Jason Wright. And I really think they're going to just Wright and Rivera are going to be the guys for the next 6 to 10 years.
You hope so. Yeah. I mean, so
the best part about it was that the race question was erased immediately. You know, because it's very obvious to me. He's highly qualified.
Yeah,
he presents all that stuff. He looks to be an outstanding person, and so. those questions were kind of raised for an hour, and then they're gone.
I appreciated that he also, when people would ask him about it, he was very direct. If you can find a white guy with my resume, I'm sorry to him that I beat him for the job.
I like to know how Dan found him personally.
I've heard it was a consulting firm from various people on Twitter.
Headhunter?
Yeah, Headhunter. Because from what we know of Dan Snyder, this does not seem like the kind of guy he would just casually know. Dan doesn't know people.
No. Dan has terrible people skills, what it appears to me. I've never met him, but
I think Dan's a terrible judge of character. I don't.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that he has bad people skills. I've been around Dan in social and non-social settings, and it's just he's really lively. He's really fun to be around, man. Like, believe it or not, like he's cool.
That's interesting you say that because it's the opposite of the way he comes across to me.
Yeah, he comes across like
Dan is fun. When he around people that he know and he comfortable with, he is himself, and he's fun. He's lively. Like, he engages you from the best guy on the roster to the last guy on the roster. You still hold equal weight with him in some sense as far as how he interacts with you.
So true antisocial behavior where you're just very kind of shy around people you don't know, and then when you're comfortable with people, you explode. It sounds like
he's obviously a terrible judge of character because he hired Vinny Serrato and Bruce Allen, so that part is definitely
and all the scandals.
Sure.
Yeah,
all the other people. Yeah, true.
Yeah. But I think we should really focus. This is a great move. It looks like. I like that we're separating these things, and the business side. Who knows what it'll impact with the roster. I don't know how much. Like, obviously, if you get a new stadium, you get new facilities. That's a big deal for players in the end, right?
Is it? How big a deal is it?
I would assume it is. Rob, I mean, if you got new facilities, do you care as a pro player or what?
Yes, I do care as a guy that's been there. And as a new guy who has the potential to come in, when they bring in these guys, these draft picks or their prospects or their visits, that stuff matters to them too.
Sure.
It's not like they ultimately have the choice, but at the same time, it's like, damn, like I wish I was drafted here or I wish I played here.
Right.
Because I can tell you, when I went to see the Jets facilities versus Indianapolis facilities, when they flew me out pre-draft, it's a huge difference. It's a big difference.
Well, and I'm sure you've seen the pictures, at least, of the new Vikings facility.
I have not.
Oh, it's amazing. The Vikings and the Cowboys have these incredible, like, they were basically building new mini stadiums in their facilities and building, like, full-on medical clinics in their facility, not clinics, like hospitals on their facility grounds. They're doing insane stuff.
It's a training facility?
Yeah.
I'm looking at.
So
a lot of uplating sconces. Let me put it that way.
Right.
And Steve probably doesn't care about those types of things, but
Zero.
I'm with Rob. I think players notice things like that and they want that.
Yeah, I mean, it just helps build prestige and
sure.
Because the players talk to other players from other teams, and they like, oh man, y'all stadium sucks, bro. Like like I hate playing y'all there. I hate playing. I hate seeing, like, going to y'all facility, or I used to be there and I hated it, but now I'm here and these facilities are so much like that type of thing does come up. I'm not saying it's a huge factor as far as morale goes, but those things do come up and they do matter somewhat.
Well, who was better? Was it the Jets or the Colts that had the bad facility?
Oh, the Colts was like ancient.
Oh.
It was ancient. They literally sent us to a hospital to get all the blood work and all the stuff they needed.
They couldn't do it on site at all.
They could not do anything on site. Jets was like, boom, right here. Here you go. Let me see your arm.
So I've always kind of ragged on the Redskins facility, even though I don't really know it that well and compare it. How would theirs have compared to some of the other teams you've seen?
They've made a lot of upgrades to make it middle of the road.
Gotcha.
But when I was there, it was just
bad.
My college training facility was better than the Redskins.
Well, but a lot of colleges have better facilities than the NFL now. And you were in a major conference. You know as well as I do. Some of those colleges, man, they put serious money into the facilities. Comical.
But to direct it back,
yeah.
So Jason Wright,
Yes.
I think I to me, great hire.
If he can get the facilities and the new stuff going, which has to happen the next couple of years when he's going to be there, you know,
Yeah, they're getting to the point where they need to start sort of getting a plan in place for whatever's going to happen with the next stadium for sure.
oh yeah, like in the next 2 years, if they don't have
Yeah,
a plan, I'm worried.
yeah. If it doesn't happen by 2022 or so,
Yeah.
there's a problem.
Yeah. But so it'll be that. It'll be, I guess, tickets. I don't know. I don't know what his other duties will be.
Well, a lot of it is like this is what I did. I mean, a lot of it's sponsorship, marketing deals, arranging stuff. You know, is it going to be Aramark in the stadium or not? You know, doing the food. Parking arrangements and all of that stuff. That's what is the day-to-day business of a football team.
Right.
That's the stuff that he and his staff will handle.
Right.
I wonder, will there be a price change in the stadiums when fans are allowed to go back? Because I never understood it when I was playing, but after going back to games, it's freaking ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
What do you mean, just the sticker shock?
I mean, like
yeah.
$8 sodas.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not even a large, and it's $8. I'm like, bro, come on. Like,
well, the who's really ahead of the power curve on that is the Atlanta Falcons. Arthur Blank has dramatically reduced the price of all that. I think the prior staff.
They should.
Yeah, the prior staff would never have done that.
Yeah.
So if maybe that's something that Wright will implement to sort of engender goodwill, because it's not like they're attracting people to the stadium some other way.
Right. Yeah, at least do it with the baseline, the hot dogs and the sodas.
Well, it isn't basic marketing 101. If you are lacking customers, one of the things to do is make the price cheaper to attract more people to your product. That's called capitalism.
Right.
101.
Right.
Now, I mean, I can understand if it was like a historic jersey that was on site and oh my God, I want it so bad. Charge somebody out the ads for that. Like, don't bust my balls over a beer.
Right. Right. Well, and the amazing thing is the beers, the markup is on the cheap things. The worst markups on the sodas and the hot dogs, stuff that you can get for 30 cents. In real life. Beer at least costs a little bit more money to buy. So, like, when you're like, oh, it's a $12 beer versus an $8 soda.
There's a lot of things that can be, that Wright can do. The stadium prices is one. The way they treat their season ticket holders is another. They've been terrible about that. They've sued because I'm a nerd about lawsuits. I have looked this up. There are lawsuits out there by the Redskins franchise against season ticket holders.
Yes.
That is a thing that's not a rumor that did happen. So you got to treat people right. They've harassed people in the past about signs that disparage Dan Snyder. You got to let all that stuff go. And you got to build a better sense of goodwill amongst the community. The Redskins Foundation has done some good things.
Yeah.
That needs to be more to the forefront. The Women of Washington is a great thing to do that not every team has. For example, that Native American Foundation thing on the other end, they didn't ever really do anything with it.
Actually, I think they killed it and didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things he can do.
Right, and I think that is going to be kind of what those should be his priorities. And good luck to him. Let's just wrap it up there and say good luck to him. Guys, I don't know about you. I don't think we have anything else on the agenda. So, and we're at 110. So
again,
yeah, we went a little over. I want to thank everybody else who's listening for joining us. I want to thank you guys for being on this week. And other than that, just I'm counting down the days now till real football. So I hope everyone else is too. And with that,
I definitely am.
Yeah, with that, I bid you good day. All right.
Cut.
Stop.
Cut.